There's a rhythm you've always noticed, soft, subtle, like a thread of knowing that pulses quietly beneath the noise of everyday life. While most people walk through stories they never chose, you felt the edges bending, a strange awareness, a deeper current, something unspoken that keeps calling you beyond the visible frame. And maybe, just maybe, it was never your imagination. It was your memory waking up. Tonight, we're slowing everything down. Let the noise fall away. Wherever you are late night in your room, earbuds tucked in during a quiet walk, or lying back with stars outside your window, this moment is yours. If this finds you, it's not by chance. You're invited to remember the way your perception changes what's real, the way your feelings ripple outward, and how reality bends when you stop seeking and start allowing. Subscribe if you haven't already, so you can find your way back here next time. And tell me, where are you listening from? And what time is it right now? Because in this story, we're not just observing the world, we're becoming it. This is not a lecture. It's a remembering. And tonight, you begin to feel the pulse again. You've always known there was something beneath the surface. Not because anyone told you, not because you read it in a book or heard it in a song, but because it was there, humming quietly behind the world, like a pulse that didn't match the pace of clocks, but kept rhythm with something older, something more alive. It wasn't loud. It didn't demand your attention. It whispered. It waited. And every so often, in those in-between moments, between thought and breath, between action and hesitation, you'd feel it again. That sensation that reality wasn't entirely real, or at least not entirely fixed. That perhaps the walls of the world were softer than they seemed. That perhaps you were never quite looking at the world, but looking through it. And maybe that slight difference has been the doorway all along. You never fully fit the mold they gave you. You played the part when you had to wear the names, followed the scripts, bent yourself into the costumes of normalcy. But deep down, the alignment was never clean. It always felt like a kind of compression, like you had to shrink to survive. Others seemed to accept the surface. Wake up, do the tasks, meet the deadlines, repeat. But you were always watching the sky just a bit longer, listening to silence as if it might answer you, noticing the way certain thoughts arrived, not from logic, but from somewhere else, like fragments of memory you hadn't lived yet. You weren't resisting life. You were resonating with a different layer of it. And that's where it begins, not with rebellion or outrage or seeking power, but with resonance, a quiet agreement between your nervous system and the unknown. Something in you recognizes that the world is not just made of matter, but of movement, of waves, of frequency, of fields that react when observed. You felt this without needing proof when you entered a room and instantly sensed the mood before a word was spoken. When a person crossed your path and you felt a spark of familiarity unearned by time. When your attention landed on something, a word, an image, a decision, and the air itself seemed to hold its breath around it. You weren't imagining things. You were remembering them. You've known how to feel frequencies long before anyone handed you the language. As a child, you sensed emotion in objects, as if memories were stored in wood, in metal, in the folds of cloth. You could tell when something had been touched by joy, or when it carried the quiet weight of grief. You knew which places felt open, and which held a kind of energetic resistance. You didn't have the words for it, so you called it intuition, imagination, or sometimes just silence. But your body was translating data long before your mind could understand it. You were born fluent in a language most adults had forgotten. The mind is a beautiful tool, but you've begun to realize it's not the only one. There's an intelligence behind your eyes, beneath your skin, inside your breath, something not limited to thought. It knows without needing explanation. It moves without needing permission. It picks up on subtle changes in tone, tension, temperature, and unspoken language that's always been there, waiting for someone to finally listen. And you've been listening, even when you didn't know what it meant. What you're tapping into isn't magic. It's mechanics. Quantum mechanics, yes, but felt through the body, not just studied in the lab. At this scale of existence, reality doesn't behave the way we were taught. Particles aren't particles until they're seen. Waves of potential collapse into form only when measured. And the one doing the measuring, the observer, is not neutral. They are part of the outcome. Meaning, your focus shapes the field. Your attention becomes architecture. Your emotional state, yes, even that becomes instruction for what the universe builds next. But you knew this, not because anyone explained it, but because you've lived it. Think back to those moments when your life changed, not slowly, but instantly. The near miss that turned into clarity. A heartbreak that cracked you open instead of closed. The coincidence that wasn't one. In each of those moments, reality didn't follow a linear path. It jumped. It rearranged. It responded. And your role was never passive. It was formative. You've always been in dialogue with the field. You just weren't always aware you were. Speaking, the problem is never your perception. The problem is how often you've been told to doubt it, to dim it, to make it more palatable. And each time you've done that, each time you've ignored your gut, betrayed your instinct, softened your truth to keep the peace, you've stepped out of coherence. You've sent a mixed signal, not just to the world, but to the field. And yet, the signal has never stopped broadcasting. It's still there, underneath the noise, waiting to be trusted again. There's something quiet and holy about perception when it's no longer seeking approval. It becomes a listening device, a tuning fork, not used to prove anything, but simply to feel, to sense, to allow. And in that softness, you return to something so ancient, it feels like the beginning of all memory. The original awareness, the witness, the part of you that never forgot Dot. It's strange, isn't it? How being more you feels like becoming less solid, less predictable, less definable. But maybe that's not a loss. Maybe that's the first sign of your expansion. You're not here to be boxed in by labels. You're here to slip through them, like light through lace. You're not here to be understood by systems that weren't designed to hold your magnitude. You're here to render them obsolete simply by existing. And it's not just about knowing more. It's about becoming more. Not by collecting facts or proving your worth, but by dropping the layers that told you to be less. When you stop apologizing for your awareness, your whole field changes. People may not know why, but they feel it. They sense a stillness, a clarity, a kind of gravity around you. That's coherence. That's what happens when your inner signal aligns with your outer expression. You stop broadcasting distortion. You become a clear note. And in the presence of that clarity, others begin to remember themselves too. You've likely felt that strange pull, the sense that some version of you already exists beyond the problem. That somewhere, somehow, your life is already blooming in a parallel thread. That this you, the one listening now, is not building from scratch, but remembering. The blueprint. That sense isn't wishful thinking. It's a form of access. You are not climbing toward the light. You are the light, learning how to refract itself again. Let that settle for a moment. You don't need to chase the future when you understand that time is a field, not a line. When you feel resonance with a version of yourself who already holds peace, already holds clarity, already lives the truth you ache for, that version is available. Not through effort, through access, through frequency. You don't become it by working harder. You tune to it by dropping the static. That's the secret most systems won't teach you. They want you to hustle, to fix, to self-improve endlessly. But the quantum field doesn't respond to force. It responds to alignment, to signal clarity. And your clearest signal is sent when you are deeply, unapologetically yourself, not the version of you that pleases others or makes sense on paper, but the one who listens to that strange inner, knowing and lets it lead. So next time the world feels overwhelming, return to this. Your breath is an interface. Your feelings are instruments. Your attention is a form of measurement. And your being simply as it is a tuning fork for new realities. You're not here to escape the world. You're here to reshape it, gently, consistently, from within. And the field? It's listening. There's a question that keeps rising, not from your mind, but from somewhere quieter. It doesn't arrive like a thought. It arrives like a gentle pressure behind your ribs. What if the world doesn't change when you fix the problem, but when you shift the one who's observing it? What if you've been solving the wrong thing? Maybe the patterns that loop in your life, scarcity, resistance, loneliness, fatigue, are not obstacles. They're mirrors. Reflective surfaces showing you the observer you've been using to perceive reality. And the more you stare at the pattern, the more you reinforce it. Not because you're broken, but because you haven't realized yet that you're allowed to choose a different lens. You've been told to fix the outer, but the real power lies in reconfiguring the inner, not by force, not by hustle, but by frequency, by identity shift. Who you are being creates the aperture, through which the field collapses into form. The version of you who believes things are stuck will always find proof of it. But the version of you who quietly chooses spaciousness instead of struggle, that version opens the waveform to something new, and not metaphorically, literally. The field follows form, and form follows focus. Every time you shift who you are being, the story begins to tell itself differently. This is what most people miss. They try to change the outcome without changing the observer. But the field doesn't lie. You can't fake a frequency. You can say all the affirmations you want, but if your inner state is entangled with lack, the field doesn't respond to your words. It responds to your coherence. This is why trying harder sometimes fails you, because effort without alignment creates distortion. It amplifies the static. You're not here to broadcast noise. You're here to tune the signal, and the signal is you, but you've been trained gently, persistently, almost invisibly, to tune away from it, to believe your signal is too much, too strange, too emotional, too slow, too soft, too intense. So you layered on identities that made more sense to others. You wore the normalcy like armor, smiled when you wanted silence, numbed your knowing to stay digestible, and the world rewarded you. It always does, but only on the surface. Inside, the field grew quieter, not out of punishment, but out of respect. The field never forces its truth on those not ready to remember. Still, it never stopped listening. You see, you are not the problem. You are the interface, the bridge, the aperture, the one through whom new possibilities enter the world. But only when you trust your own perception enough to stop editing it. Every time you sense something others don't, that's not a mistake. That's a preview. You're ahead of the signal. You're feeling the future before it becomes obvious. And yes, that can be lonely, because you're navigating a reality that hasn't rippled into collective awareness yet. But that doesn't make it wrong. It makes it quantum dot, and quantum things are subtle. They're felt, not forced. They unfold in coherence, not conflict. That's why your sensitivity isn't a weakness. It's your access point. It's how you know what others miss, how you feel what others flatten, how you arrive in moments before the moment arrives. Your sensitivity is the frequency through which intelligence flows, but you were never taught how to use it. You were only taught how to hide it, how to reinterpret your deep awareness as anxiety, your knowing as overthinking, your attunement as fragility. That was never the truth. You weren't broken. You were bilingual, fluent in a language the world had forgotten how to speak. And now, something in you is remembering how to listen again. You can feel it, can't you? The inner compass returning not to logic, but to resonance. You're no longer satisfied with thoughts that sound smart, but feel hollow. You're no longer soothed by systems that promise safety, but cost you your signal. You're beginning to trust what feels real, even if it defies convention. That's evolution. That's awakening. Not through some grand explosion of insight, but through the steady softening into truth. And here's where it gets deeper. Your emotional state is not a byproduct of your reality. It's a design tool. It's a sculpting instrument. Every feeling you hold, especially the ones you generate from within, shapes the probability field around you. Joy isn't just a reward. It's a resonant code. When you hold joy, not because something happened, but because it's who you are being, the field bends toward that version of reality. You become a gravitational point around which new timelines orbit, but you can't perform joy to get something. That's not coherence. That's manipulation. A field doesn't respond to performance. It responds to purity, to the clean note of I am without need. When you hold peace not because it was earned, but because it already exists within you, that is coherence. That is transformation, not emotional bypassing, not pretending to be fine, but choosing a signal more reflective of your truth than your trauma. And the trauma? It's not your fault, but it is your frequency until you shift it. That's the hard part no one wants to say aloud. The pain you didn't choose becomes the filter you unconsciously use. Until you decide to change the lens. That doesn't mean denying what hurt you. It means refusing to keep creating from it. You are not here to decorate the walls of your pain. You are here to reprogram the frame. You do that by changing who's holding the camera. You've already glimpsed this. In moments when time felt soft, when the air grew strange, when something lined up in your life with uncanny ease and you couldn't explain why. Those were moments of coherence. You didn't get lucky. You became aligned. Your field was clear. Your inner state matched your potential, not your past. And the result? Synchronicity, flow, harmony without effort. That's not fantasy. That's physics, Dot. And once you realize this, you can't unknow it. You start to feel every choice as a shift in reality, every belief as a tuning dial, every emotion as a frequency code. You start to walk differently, not as someone navigating a fixed world, but as someone shaping a fluid one. You begin to notice how your silence holds as much power as your words, how your stillness isn't emptiness, but a recalibration point. You become deliberate, gentle, precise, and the world in turn begins to reshape itself around your signal. You stop asking, how do I change the world? And start asking, who am I being that the world reflects this way? And from that question, everything begins to bloom. Not because you fixed the broken pieces, but because you changed the blueprint from which they were made. This is the shift no one can do for you. It happens quietly, inside the spine of your identity. It doesn't require evidence. It creates evidence. And the more you allow this inner shift to stabilize, the more you'll find the external world softening in response. Not because it's kinder, but because your signal is clearer. And when the signal is clear, the field listens. You've spent much of your life waiting for something to prove what you already knew. A sign, a breakthrough, a moment that made the invisible finally visible. But here's the quiet truth. It was never the sign that was missing. It was your permission to believe what you felt. The pulse you kept noticing wasn't waiting to announce itself. It was waiting for you to stop doubting its language. You were always capable of translating the field. You just needed to stop pretending you couldn't hear it, because you hear things others don't. Not in the way of sound, but in the way of resonance. You feel dissonance where others hear silence. You sense incongruence behind polished words. You notice subtle fluctuations in energy, like shifts in temperature. And the more you allow yourself to trust this, without explanation or apology, the more clearly the field speaks through you. You are not discovering new truths. You are remembering old ones. That's the real remembering, not a return to the past, but a return to your original coherence. The state before distortion, the architecture of your frequency before it was bent into forms that pleased others. And as that coherence strengthens, something strange begins to happen. Reality bends, not in grand cinematic bursts, but in tiny, elegant shifts. People treat you differently without knowing why. Opportunities find you without you seeking them. Timing aligns with uncanny softness. You begin to feel like life is not being chased anymore. It's being allowed. But this is not effortless in the way we've been sold. It's not passive. It's active surrender. Devotional calibration. Choosing again and again to release the identity that resists and embody the one that remembers. Because every time you default to old patterns, they don't just slow your evolution, they distort the field around you. That doesn't mean you failed. It means you've tuned your signal to a frequency that no longer matches your truth. And the moment you notice, you have the choice again. Retune, realign. Remember that this remembering isn't intellectual. It's cellular. It's the soft electricity that moves through your fingertips when you touch something that carries meaning. It's the stillness that falls over you when you're finally seen, not for your performance, but for your presence. It's the quiet that rises in your chest when someone speaks to you from their own field of coherence. You know it when you feel it. That gentle, unmistakable resonance that says, you're not alone in this signal anymore. And that changes everything. Because now the field isn't just receiving you, it's reflecting you back in others. Coherence attracts coherence. And one signal of truth makes it safer for another to emerge. You begin to find them, the others, not by seeking, but by stabilizing. They arrive like tuning forks in the fog. People who don't just understand you, they recognize you. Not because of shared pasts or mutual logic, but because your signals match, the frequencies align. And suddenly, you're no longer holding your remembering alone. This is where the individual becomes collective, where remembering becomes resonance. You realize that your personal transformation was never meant to end with you. Every time you embody your frequency more clearly, you make it easier for the field itself to evolve. The morphogenetic grid, the invisible scaffolding that defines what's considered normal, is sensitive to emergence. When one person stabilizes in truth, it sends out a subtle shockwave. Others feel it, often unconsciously, and those dormant parts of them begin to stir. This is how awakening spreads, not by persuasion, but by presence. That's the quiet revolution. Not in the streets, but in the field. Not in the institutions, but in the individuals who outgrow them. And as you stabilize further, your very existence becomes a broadcast, not loud, not grandiose, but undeniable. People sense something in you they didn't know they were seeking. They can't name it, but they feel better around you, more open, more clear. That's the power of coherent presence. It allows others to remember who they are without you needing to say a word. You begin to realize that leadership is not a title. It's a transmission. And the most powerful transmissions don't dominate the room. They tune it. They soften it. They elevate the frequency without needing attention. You've met people like this before, people who change the atmosphere simply by being in it. That is not a coincidence. That is coherence. And now, it's becoming you. But there's another layer to this remembering, one that's easily missed. You are not just remembering who you are. You are remembering how many you are, because you've never been singular. You've always carried multiple timelines, multiple versions, multiple identities that coexist like chords in a symphony. The linear self is a fiction, a helpful one, but still a fiction. You are not a point. You are a field. And now that you know this, you can choose those chords more deliberately. Imagine that. A life built not on repetition, but on choice. Not on memory of pain, but on selection of frequency. You don't need to heal every wound before you create something beautiful. You don't need to resolve every fear before you access clarity. You simply need to stop building your reality from the version of you that believes those wounds are still in charge. You are not here to be defined by what broke you. You are here to become the pattern interrupt, the harmonic disruption, the note that doesn't fit the old song and doesn't need to. And the moment you do, the field rearranges. Not instantly, not always dramatically, but faithfully, repeatedly, with a kind of cosmic patience that matches your readiness. Because the field will always meet you where your signal stabilizes, not where your intentions wish to go, but where your frequency already lives. So the real work? It's not in doing more, it's in remembering more clearly, holding the signal longer, choosing the version of yourself that exists beyond fear, and letting that one observe the world. Because from that vantage point, even the hard moments look different. Even the grief has coherence. Even the endings begin to shimmer. With invitation. You are not here to prove your worth to a broken system. You are here to live so truthfully that the system becomes irrelevant. You are not here to teach through force. You are here to remind through frequency. The world doesn't need more information. It needs more coherence. And that begins not when you learn something new, but when you embody what you've always known. And the most sacred truth of all, you are the signal. You are the field. You are the form it's been waiting to become. There comes a moment, quiet and unmarked, when you stop trying to become anything. Not because you've given up, but because you've returned. Returned to the original awareness that was never missing, only layered beneath the noise. In that stillness, you begin to feel the truth of what you are. Not a product of time, but a presence moving through it. Not a linear mind tracking progress, but a consciousness sculpting experience from the inside out. This is where the old search ends, not with an answer, but with alignment. You're no longer seeking to find yourself. You're becoming the space where yourself can land. And the more fully you make space for yourself, the more softly the world begins to move around you, like a tide reshaping its rhythm to match a forgotten moon dot from that space. Everything changes. Not in fireworks, but in geometry. You begin to notice the design beneath your life. How every repetition was a mirror. How every pain had precision. How every delay was not punishment, but pacing, so that when you arrived at your coherence, you'd know how to hold it. And now, you're learning how to hold it. Not as a performance, not as something to prove, but as something that simply is. The same way gravity doesn't justify itself, your coherence doesn't need explanation. It just pulls. And that pull rearranges your reality in ways you can't always predict, but you can always trust. You stop measuring progress and outcomes and start measuring it in presence. How fully did I show up to this moment? How deeply did I breathe? How honestly did I witness without judgment? These are your new metrics. Subtle, soft, sacred, and more powerful than any goal you could chase. Because presence doesn't chase. Presence draws. It pulls from the field what already exists and translates it into form. Not through force, through fidelity. The field matches coherence, not effort. And coherence begins not with what you do, but with what you stop doing, stop pretending, stop suppressing, Stop shrinking just to stay familiar to people who were never meant to hear your full frequency. But you've been trained to doubt your presence, to believe that what is still must be lazy, that what is calm must be naive, that what is surrendered must be weak. These are distortions, inverted truths whispered by systems that rely on your disconnection to survive. But you are not here to validate those systems. You are here to eclipse them by embodying a deeper truth. A truth that doesn't shout. A truth that resonates. Not by force, but by remembering. Not by convincing, but by becoming. When you embody the state others forgot was real, you awaken something dormant in them without speaking a word. And as that resonance deepens, you begin to feel your perception evolving. Not just what you see, but how you see. The space between. Things becomes more alive. You notice the rhythm in silence, the intelligence in waiting. You begin to sense the architecture of emotional space, the way an unspoken thought reshapes a room, the way a withheld truth thickens the air. You're no longer just moving through the world. You're scanning it, not with suspicion, with awareness, with attunement, with that quiet internal compass that knows, before your mind does, where the truth is hiding. You begin to see not just with your eyes, but with your entire field. This is when you begin to operate differently. You no longer take action for the sake of activity. You don't speak to fill space. You don't agree to stay liked. You begin to choose from alignment, not obligation. And that one internal shift subtle, as it seems, creates ripples you may never fully see. Because when you act from coherence, the field amplifies your choice. It echoes it through timelines. It sends out a frequency that says, this is what reality can look like. And somewhere, someone else remembers a part of themselves through the signal you just sent. Without ever meeting you, they remember. Because coherence travels beyond geography. It operates in resonance. You may never know who you're waking, but the field knows. And it keeps score in silence. The invisible revolution is always happening underground through thoughts that shift, breaths that deepen, and emotions that soften from resistance into receptivity. This is no longer about self-help. It's about self-harmonics. The science of signal, the art of vibration. And you, dear listener, are becoming an instrument. One that tunes reality by existing in tune with itself. You don't need to be loud to be effective. You just need to be clear, because clarity travels farther than volume ever could. And you're becoming clearer every day, not by finding answers, but by shedding distortion. You are not becoming better. You are becoming truer. There's nothing to add, only something to return to. And once you do, the field begins to pulse differently around you. Time flows differently. People react differently. You're no longer a participant in systems designed by survival. You're now a source of frequency that reshapes the pattern from within. This is your sacred architecture. You've become the variable in the equation, the wild note in the old melody, the one who doesn't conform, not out of rebellion, but because truth refuses to shrink. But there will be days when that truth feels heavy, when the clarity feels like burden, when the sensitivity aches, not because you're weak, but because you're clearing generations of static. You're transmuting frequencies your lineage didn't have the tools to hold. Every time you choose alignment over approval, coherence over comfort, stillness over reaction, you're rewriting the vibrational story you were born into. And sometimes that's not glamorous. It's tender. It's lonely. It's full of invisible victories no one claps for, but they matter. They echo. They build a field others will one day rest inside without knowing why it feels like home. That's your legacy. Not your resume, not your productivity, not your relevance. Your Legacy is the invisible resonance you leave in every space you've ever entered. And the more faithfully you live in alignment with that, the more you become a living bridge, not just between past and future, but between possible and actual. You are collapsing distance between thought and reality, between self and field, between dreaming and doing. And the collapse is gentle. It doesn't rush. It doesn't need to. It only requires presence, sustained, loving presence. And the most radical act of all, you're doing it quietly, because this isn't about spectacle. It's about structure, internal architecture, the way you hold yourself in moments of doubt, the way you return to center after rupture, the way you anchor into breath when everything around you says panic. That's the real quantum work. Not escaping the storm, but becoming the stillness. Inside it, becoming the field within the field. So coherent, so stable, that the external world no longer defines you. It reflects you. You become the measurement. You become the collapse point. You become the lens through which raw potential turns into form. That you begin to see how much you've always shaped things. That moment when a friend calmed down simply because you entered the room. That decision someone made after a single conversation with you. That project that succeeded not because of what you said, but because of who you were while saying it. These aren't accidents. They're expressions of field intelligence. You've been sculpting reality all along. The difference now is you know it. And with that knowing comes choice. You can choose to hold a room instead of control it. You can choose to lead without needing followers. You can choose to create from wholeness instead of pain. You can choose to become so coherent, so aligned, that reality has no choice but to reflect the version of you that finally stopped shrinking. And when you do, the field doesn't just shift for you, it shifts around you. It bends toward harmony. It remembers how to listen, because you reminded it how to sing. Somewhere along the way, you began to notice that emotion wasn't just a feeling, it was a frequency that shaped what the world gave back to you. You didn't need anyone to teach it. You noticed it yourself. The days you woke up with trust in your breath, the world opened. Traffic flowed, conversations landed, time bent toward grace. And the days you spiraled in fear or heaviness, the world mirrored that rhythm too. People interrupted. Things broke. The noise amplified. It didn't take long to realize the universe wasn't random. It was responsive. And you were not just the receiver. You were the transmitter. At first, this truth felt overwhelming. The idea that every internal state might carry some weight, might create echoes in the field, might collapse possibility into matter. How could you hold that much responsibility? But then something deeper softened inside you. A realization surfaced. This isn't pressure. This is participation. You weren't being burdened by the field. You were being invited into it, not as a servant to its rules, but as a co-author of its outcomes. The question was never, why is this happening to me? It was always, what part of me called this into form? You started to experiment, not with force, not with desperate manifestation rituals, but with quiet precision. You began to sit with the version of you who already lived the peace you longed for, not as fantasy, but as selection. You wore joy in your bones like memory. You wrapped gratitude around your breath like fabric. You spoke to your nervous system as if it were your first home, not your final enemy. And slowly you noticed things shifted. Not because the world became easier, but because you became clearer. The field wasn't ignoring you. It was waiting for your coherence. Every emotion you embody becomes a lens. And lenses don't just color the light, they shape the architecture of what is seen. When you walk into the world with disappointment simmering behind your smile, the field picks up that subtle shadow. When you reach for something while vibrating in fear, the universe doesn't punish you. It simply collapses the options that match your current note, not as retribution, as resonance. That's all reality is, an orchestra of resonance. And your emotion is the conductor. But here's what no one told you. You don't need to wait for your external world to justify better emotion. You can begin the concert from within. You can shift the conductor before the music changes. And when you do, the world will adjust its tempo to match you. This is not about pretending. This is not toxic positivity wrapped in mystical language. This is quantum mechanics through the medium of the heart. It's not fake it till you make it. It's tune it until you become it. It's emotional intelligence as dimensional architecture. The ability to feel deeply, choose deliberately, and resonate authentically. Your emotion is not a weakness. It's a blueprint dot, and here's the deeper layer. Your emotions don't just change the content of your life. They change the context of it. A moment filled with peace becomes a different moment altogether. The same room, the same faces, the same tasks. But now, seen through the lens of wholeness instead of scarcity, it unfolds differently. The conversation becomes more honest. The opportunity reveals itself. The problem resolves, not because it was fixed, but because you stopped approaching it from the version of you who needed the struggle to feel real. Reality isn't just experienced, it's filtered. And every time you change your emotional filter, you update the code of your life. This is where identity begins to reveal itself as fluid. You've been told you are one person, living one life, shaped by one past. But the quantum world laughs gently at that idea. You are not one fixed self. You are a constellation of selves, each one activated by a different emotion, a different focus, a different frequency. When you feel stuck, it's not because you're broken. It's because you're staring through the same version of you that created the current pattern. The moment you soften into a new emotional state, joy, wonder, reverence, stillness, you wake up a different version of self. And that self walks into a different room, even if the furniture hasn't moved. This is the quiet magic of being alive. You are never truly stuck. You are just temporarily tuned into a reality that reflects the version of you that forgot you had a choice. And the moment you remember, even a sliver of it, everything shifts, not always visibly, but structurally, internally, fundamentally. So how do you shift? Not with effort, with environment. Not always physical environment, but inner atmosphere. What you listen to, what you speak to yourself when no one else is listening, what images you hold when you breathe before sleep, what energy you allow near your nervous system. These are not small decisions. They are quantum measurements. They collapse the field into form. And that's where the next evolution happens. Just in isolated moments of awakening, but in the stabilization of signal. Can you stay in coherence when no one validates you? Can you remain soft in a world trained by harshness? Can you choose the frequency of trust not because it guarantees success, but because it feels like home? If so, you are no longer reacting. You are a RCHITETING. Your presence becomes blueprint. Not only for your life, but for others around you. Because the field doesn't stop at your skin. It radiates. Emotionally, energetically, atmospherically, and others feel it. Even if they can't name it. Especially if they can't name it. That's how you begin to lead without trying to lead. You become a stable frequency in an unstable matrix. You become a lighthouse, not a rescue boat. And in your signal, others begin to hear their own. Eventually, you stop needing confirmation. You stop needing alignment to be a shared experience. You begin to see your coherence as a gift to the grid itself. Every time you choose alignment in private, the collective nervous system breathes a little easier. You are no longer awakening just for yourself. You are becoming a harmonic node in a system that forgot it could sing. And you'll start to see it ripple. the child who settles when you hold presence, the stranger who speaks softer near you, the group that reaches clarity without knowing why. These aren't random effects. They are field responses. You've shifted the atmosphere, and the atmosphere responds in kind. You are not creating in isolation. You are co-sculpting with the invisible. The quantum field does not respond to your words. It responds to your state. And when your state is clear, kind, coherent, and unhurried, reality moves. It moves not because you forced it, but because you stopped interfering with it. And this is perhaps the final surrender, realizing that reality doesn't need fixing. It needs directing. And the director is not your effort. It's your essence. The more fully you embody your signal, the less you'll find yourself needing to chase what's already on its way. You stop begging the field to notice you. You start trusting that it always has. And now, finally, you're noticing it back. There's a quiet that arrives when you stop needing to convince the world of your transformation. A stillness that no longer demands applause or agreement. You no longer wait for others to approve of your growth before allowing yourself to rest inside it. You begin to feel the shift internally, not as a moment of triumph, but as a slow and sacred widening. Your breath softens. Your edges dissolve. And you realize the signal you've been sending has always mattered, even when no one responded, because you weren't sending it for them. You were sending it because it was true. This is the stage of awakening that few speak about. The stage where outer change becomes less important than inner structure, where the work is no longer dramatic, but deliberate. No more chasing miracles. No more seeking escape. Now, the question becomes softer, stranger, deeper. Can I stabilize this signal when no one's watching? Can I live inside it even when the world feels unready? And when the answer becomes yes, not always, but often enough, you begin to feel the code of your existence realign. Beneath your skin, this is where you begin to shape time, not in the way most understand it. Not as control over hours or deadlines, but as a softening of sequence. You find yourself in places before logic says you should. You think of someone just before they speak. You sense events unfolding before the evidence arrives. This is not coincidence. This is coherence. You are no longer traveling through time. Time is flowing through you. And the more consistently you hold a stable state of presence, the more fluid the structure of reality becomes around you. You're not bending time. You're tuning it, because time is not a river. It's a rhythm. And your body is an instrument that remembers how to play in tune. That's why healing isn't always about the past. Sometimes healing is about reclaiming your rhythm. Remembering that you are not behind, not late, not out of place, but precisely located within the spiral of your own becoming. This is what the quantum field reflects, not just your desires, but your readiness. And readiness is not a goal, it's a state, a tone, a frequency that says, I am available for alignment, not from desperation, but from clarity. I am no longer asking the field to prove anything. I am listening. I am holding. I am radiating what I used to chase. And in that state, something profound begins to unfold. You stop being shocked by peace. You stop distrusting ease. You stop questioning synchronicity. You allow the mystery to be simple. You let reality be soft again. And that softness is not weakness. It is structure softened by presence. It is form made pliable by alignment. You are not losing your grip on life. You are letting life hold you differently. That's the deeper truth. Alignment is not something you fight for. It's something you allow. And allowing doesn't mean collapsing or surrendering to fate. It means clearing enough noise from your signal that what is already meant for you can find you. Most people are not missing their path. They're distorting their reception. Not because they're broken, but because they were never taught how to listen beneath the volume of the world. You're learning now. Gently, patiently, repeatedly, you're learning how to listen not just with your ears, but with your entire field. You're remembering that guidance doesn't always arrive in language. Sometimes it shows up as tension in the gut. Sometimes as an urge to leave a room. Sometimes as the inexplicable lightness after saying no. These are not minor sensations. They are signal beacons. They are the compass points of the quantum map you carry within your body. This is your true navigation system, not logic, but resonance. Not timelines, but tone. Not maps, but memory. And the more you trust that, the more your life unfolds with a precision that no longer shocks you. The synchronicities become the norm. The moments of flow multiply. And you stop asking, is this real? Because now you know, it's not just real, it's yours. You are never meant to live in a fixed reality. You are meant to participate in an unfolding one. And your participation is not measured by how loud you are, but by how present. The world is full of people trying to make change by force. But you are learning to make change by frequency. That's why you felt out of step with most systems. They were designed to respond to effort. But your life was always designed to respond to coherence. And coherence, your learning, is not a state you visit. It's a home you remember. A home that lives within your nervous system. A home that reveals itself every time you stop fighting what you feel and begin listening to what it's asking for. Sometimes coherence asks you to pause. Sometimes it asks you to speak. Sometimes it asks you to rest while the old identity dies quietly inside your breath. But it always leads you back to yourself, not the constructed self, the coherent one. The self before performance, before pattern, before pleasing. The self that is not separate from the field, but made of it. From this place, your presence becomes a portal. You no longer walk into rooms unnoticed, not because you're loud, but because your field arrives before your body does. People begin to respond to you differently, not because you changed your behavior, but because your being has changed its vibration. And vibration always precedes form. Always. Even your thoughts change texture here. They're no longer weapons or worries. They become instruments of direction. You don't fight your mind. You direct it gently, like water moving through fingers. You no longer need perfect thoughts. You only need aware ones. Aware enough to recognize when you've slipped into the version of you that no longer needs to lead. This is how you stop looping old realities, not by resisting them, but by no longer choosing them. Every thought is a steering wheel, every emotion a weather pattern, every breath a new chance to select the version of yourself that can hold more light, more signal, more space for others, to find their own signal in your reflection. That's how the quantum shift stabilizes, not when everyone wakes up at once, but when enough people hold the frequency long enough that reality reshapes itself by gravitational pull. You are becoming part of that pull, not by leading with power, but by living with precision. Precision in your truth, in your rest, in your boundaries, in your yes, in your no. In the quiet way, you walk away from patterns that once felt like home, but now feel like weight. You no longer need to explain why. You've changed. You only need to live inside the version of you that no longer doubts the change is real. And you're already doing it. Not perfectly, but faithfully. The signal doesn't need to be flawless. It needs to be felt. And the more you feel it, the more others will. Not because you taught them, but because you tuned something in the field that their soul could hear. That's the invisible revolution. Not in politics, not in profits, but in the pulse that moves beneath the performance of modern life. And now, the performance is fading. The old scripts no longer hold. The inherited story is unraveling. Not in chaos, in clarity, in quiet, in the realization that the most powerful shifts don't require permission. They require precision. And you, now, are precise enough to remember who you are. And now, as the signal softens and you find yourself sitting in the quiet after all these layers have unfolded, you realize you've never really been lost, only layered, only listening through interference, only waiting for the silence to be safe again. But it is safe now. You've made it safe by being still. You've made it real by feeling. You are not separate from the field. You are the field remembering itself as form. Every breath you take is a soft confirmation that coherence has returned, and every choice you make from this place becomes a gentle signature in the invisible fabric of reality. So you don't have to push forward now. Just rest, just be. Let this new signal stabilize through your body, like warmth finding its home in your chest. And as you return to your day or your night, know that the remembering isn't over. It only deepens each time you listen, each time you choose presence over noise. And we'll be here when you return again. Subscribe so we can meet next time. The signal is still transmitting. Other stories are waiting for you in the silence. Let them find you when you're ready.